Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome to Midweek Geek. Here on Geek Therapy Radio, I am your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger, and usually I record Midweek Geeks about Tuesday afternoon or so I have them uploaded ideally for the Wednesday commute to work in the morning. But there's been so much going on this week. I have been struggling with just everything that's been happening this week. We had E3 going on, so all sorts of video game announcements, and I'm going to get to a huge one in just a minute. But all sorts of other news, geek news coming out. There are rumblings of a new Sandlot TV series featuring all the characters from the original Sandlot. I'm not sure how that's going to work. You know, if you've listened to me here on Geek Therapy Radio, that I personally am not such a huge fan of all the remakes. Why do we need a new Aladdin? Why do we need a new Lion King? Why do we need a new Dumbo? What was wrong with all the originals? But that's just me. I know a lot of people like to see kind of old classics in a new way, I guess. I'm only, how old am I? 35, 36 years old, something like that. It doesn't seem like Aladdin came out that long ago, but it was 1992. Anyways, I usually am not such a fan of remaking everything. I think it's just a cash grab. If we haven't already figured that out, it's not Hollywood doing anything unique or original. It's just a pure cash grab. It's not even... You know, some might make the argument that it's nostalgia, that it's just tapping into nostalgia. I don't think so. If it was tapping into nostalgia, why wouldn't you just put Aladdin back in theaters? Why wouldn't you just release Lion King again, just the original? Just put it right back in the theaters. I'm sure you would make a lot of money that way too, but they thought, I guess, well, we can make more money if we make it new with CGI. I'm getting off topic now. So a new Sandlot TV series is in the rumblings, featuring the cast, the original cast from the beginning. They've grown up. Remember that. They've grown up. So at E3, I'll just touch on this very basically because, again, there's a main point to all of this, and it's Microsoft Flight Simulator. But I think, on a whole, I think Nintendo walked away with E3. Those were the biggest announcements. Yes, Sony and Xbox hinted at their new or discussed their new consoles and everything along those lines. But I think Nintendo, just in the breadth of just games, unless I'm mistaken, they didn't mention anything about a new actual Nintendo Switch, like the stripped down, cheaper version of the Nintendo Switch. We've known about that for a while, but I don't think they mentioned that anymore at this E3. But they did mention new characters for Super Smash Brothers, mainly Banjo and Kazooie. Link's Awakening is coming to Switch, a remake of Link's Awakening. I just spent that whole diatribe talking about how I didn't like remakes. Now they're doing a remake of Link's Awakening for the Switch. But I am actually excited about that. I think that is actually cool. Call me a hypocrite. You know, as geeks, we are free to like certain remakes over other remakes. Does Link's Awakening need a refresh? Final Fantasy is also doing the same thing with Final Fantasy VII. Looks a lot like Crisis Core for the PSP, if you ask me, but that's just my own personal opinion. I know it's a completely separate game, but correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't the Crisis Core kind of... my JRPG geeks, don't grill me for this, but doesn't Crisis Core take... It's somehow tied in with Final Fantasy VII a little bit, I don't know. But anyways, the design language between the Final Fantasy VII remake and Crisis Core looks very similar, to me at least. Oh, what else with Nintendo? There's all sorts of new games coming out for Nintendo. I'm very excited for that. Final Secret of Mana series. It has me playing Final Fantasy Adventure again on my Game Boy. All sorts of things coming out from Nintendo. Okay, I've dribbled on long enough. It's not really dribble. It's just kind of talking about other things. But Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I'll just cut to the chase. It is due out next year. I already told my wife, just count me out for 2020. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to take care of any sort of husbandly duties. I am going to be probably playing Flight Simulator. Microsoft Flight Simulator, in all seriousness, I know I'm being glib, but in all seriousness, this is absolutely historic, massive news. And for those of you who aren't into Flight Simulator, just know that there is a massive worldwide community, perhaps numbering in the hundreds of millions. That's probably not too far-fetched. In the hundreds of millions who have either played or are still deeply ingrained in flight simulation, and it all started for them in about 1982 with Flight Simulator. Now, back then, it wasn't Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's another, what is it? Because I have it on the Atari and for the Commodore 64. It was called Flight Simulator, but it was made by a different company. Then Microsoft bought it, and that's what we collectively know as Microsoft Flight Simulator. But the game in any iteration has been out since 1982, and the last, real release of it, and you can argue this a little bit, was 2006 with Flight Simulator X. Now, yes, Steam released a Steam version of Flight Simulator X or Flight Simulator 10, however you want to call it, on Steam in 2014, which had some other DLC, but it was just Flight Simulator X from 2006, just with some extra goodies put in there. It wasn't a whole new game. So this is the first brand new flight simulator from Microsoft that we've been waiting for 2006, and now it's about 13 years or so. And we are stoked. We are absolutely stoked. We in the flight simulation community are just flabbergasted. It brought a tear to my eye. My friend Josh, who also works here at iHeartRadio, he texted me on Sundays like, E3 just announced Flight Simulator, and it was 1 minute after they announced it, and already the internet was abuzz within 1 minute of the new Flight Simulator. Look at the trailer for it. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, I'll include the trailer here. I might have already started playing it, a minute or so ago as I'm talking about it. For those of you local to Houston, I believe it's at the 108 mark. You can see downtown Houston, and my point I'm getting at here is the level of detail they have put into the new Flight Simulator is absolutely staggering. Phil Spencer, who is Phil Spencer over there at Microsoft? Spencer, he's at least leading the team there at Microsoft with a Flight Simulator. He's at least the spokesperson, and he mentioned that there is 2 petabytes. Not terabytes, 2 petabytes of geographical data used to, quote, seamlessly stitch together Earth. And it looks simply exquisite. Yes, some of you already might know that there's been other flight sims that have taken the torch more or less since the last full release of Microsoft Flight Simulator in 2006. There's been X-Plane, there's been Infinite Flight, all sorts of different flight simulators have existed. X-Plane 11 right now, I think. And don't get me wrong, those flight sims are incredible for what they are, but nobody, absolutely nobody does Flight Simulator like Microsoft. And we are so unbelievably stoked and jonesing and happy and shaking in our geek pants. Spencer mentions that one of the reasons behind not re-releasing, that is not what they're doing. It's a brand new flight simulator for Microsoft. One reason they're bringing it back, reviving the series, is that Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I am living proof, still has an incredibly massive and devoted enthusiast scene. I remember a year or two ago, because I still play Flight Simulator. I play Flight Simulator X quite often. I play Flight Simulator 2004 still. I play it every single day. But one of the biggest questions I have here, and I'm sure that it's a non-issue, but a couple years ago, I don't know if you've noticed, Flight Simulator fans, that the Jepsen weather server went down. It was no longer supported in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2004, Flight Simulator X, any of that. So if you wanted real-world, real-time weather in your flight simulation, that went down at least a year or two ago. As it stands now, I think at least in my flight simulator 2004 or FX9, it brings up the weather for that last extrapolation of the current weather. So there's like a high ridge pressure over the Appalachian Mountains. So anytime I dial in real-time weather, it just pulls up that last set of data. So there's always a headwind going into the Appalachian Mountains. Point is, it's only one defined real-world weather, and it was the last thing that they pulled from Jepsen. So my question is, and again, I don't think this is I think it's a non-issue. They've got it included here. Is real-time weather going to be included in the new Microsoft Flight Simulator? I would absolutely assume that it is. And more particularly, is it going to be Jepsen? Jepsen is the weather service that actual pilots use one of the services they use, among others, to get real-world data on weather. It's not just the National Weather Service. It's an actual dedicated service that's kind of caters to pilots. And it's Jepsen. Will they use Jepsen in this new Microsoft Flight Simulator? Again, I would assume they would, but who knows? So, the new Microsoft Flight Simulator releases next year in 2020, and I am almost beyond words excited for this, and I'm sure a lot of you Flight Simulator fans are too. The last thing I'll say about that is a testament to how dedicated the flight sim community is. A lot of people out there, they don't just fly with their keyboards. They don't just in the mouse. They don't just fly with even joysticks, like pairing an Xbox 360S controller to their computer to fly with that. You certainly can. You certainly do. That's what I do. A lot of people go even further and they buy yokes and flight sticks and rudder pedals and all that stuff. And some people go so far as they build out an entire room to be a mock-up of the cockpit of, let's say, a 737. Those people now have so much to look forward to in 2020. It's not just about the latest and greatest flight sim coming along. It's not just, X-Plane is coming out with a new flight simulator. No, this is reuniting. This is why it brought the tear to my eye, because it's like reuniting with an old friend that you really missed. An old dear friend that we've grown up with for decades and who has been gone missing for the last almost 15 years. And he's back better than ever, super healthy, looks great, just wonderful. It's like reuniting with an old friend. And I am so happy for that regard. I used to spend, and I'll start wrapping this up. I used to spend, still do, but I used to look forward to coming home every day from school. When this was 1992, 1993, with our old 386 computer in Windows 3.1, and then later Windows 95. But I used to look forward to coming home from elementary school and onwards, even high school. But starting in elementary school, 10 years old, looking forward to coming home and playing with Flight Simulator. So what is that, 25 years or so? That I personally been playing Flight Simulator, and it's been around for a lot longer than that. If you think about it, 1982 was 30-something, 35 years-ish, 36 years, around there, 37 years. That Flight Simulator has existed in any way, shape, or form, mostly as Microsoft. Fond memories. Many of us, it was our first foray into video games, period. A lot of us who didn't even play video games played Flight Simulator. The closest thing to Flight Simulator, I would argue, as far as racing games, as far as automobiles and cars and everything, to me, that gave me the same sort of feeling of realism and manipulation was Gran Turismo. as far as modifying your vehicles and tuning and stuff like that, even though it wasn't as intimate and integrated as a true simulation. Like, you're not in there tightening bolts on head gaskets or anything like that, but you are adding things like turbos, you're adding struts, and you can adjust dampers and the toe and camber of your wheels and everything like that. That was the closest auto racing game that came to give me the same feeling that Flight Simulator got. As far as I could sit down, Flight Simulator and for a little amount of time, Gran Turismo were the only games that there were a few times in my life where I looked at my watch and said, holy crap, I've been playing this nonstop and haven't eaten for 12 hours. Is that video game disorder? I guess you could say that, but it was only temporary. It was like a couple days that I can even remember that I was like shocked. Oh my goodness, I've been playing this for 12 hours. But that's not, with Flight Simulator, you can take flights that take 16 hours. So that's not even the longest time. So if you're doing real-time Flight Simulator, that's nothing. A flight from, I don't know, Germany to Houston or so, you can easily spend 12 hours. That's about real time. 12 hours flight between Frankfurt and intercontinental Houston. So that's my justification, at least. I think I'll wrap it up there. There's still so much more that I can put in this episode, but I'm going to save it for my actual Geek Therapy Radio that airs Saturday nights here on KPRC 950 AM. This is just the podcast, but I'll save all the other news, all the other stuff for the actual, I guess we can call it the big show. This has been Midweek Geek, your little extra tidbit of geekery in the middle of the week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope some of you, or a lot of you, are stoked about Microsoft Flight Simulator as I am. Maybe you're stoked about the new Sandlot. Maybe you're stoked about the new Nintendo Switch games coming out. There's so much to be excited for. I didn't touch on even an eighth of all the things that I'm excited about this week. So anyways, take care. Be good to yourselves and others. Please be good to yourself. I know it sounds counterintuitive to say be good to yourself first and then others, but it's kind of like the oxygen mask, to tie it back into airplanes. Oxygen mask comes out of the roof of the airplane. Secure your mask before you help somebody else secure their mask. Do you know why that is? And that's why I say take care of yourselves first before taking care of others. It's because if you don't take care of yourself first, I don't want to say you're no good to anybody. That's not true. But in the case of Matt, if you're not breathing, if you're unconscious, how are you going to help someone else if you're incapacitated? So if you don't take care of yourself first, how can you take care of other people most effectively? And I think there's a lot of guilt that comes along with trying to treat yourself well first. It's not a selfish thing. It's a selfless thing. In order to help other people most effectively, you have to help yourself first most effectively. That makes you the most beneficial to help other people. You help them better by helping yourself first. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? Don't ever stop helping other people. Take care of yourselves and others. I say that every single week here on Geek Therapy Radio. But don't forget to take care of yourself first. You're with yourself most of the time that you aren't with other people. Most of the time spent during the week, you're just with yourself. So reconnect with yourself. Embrace your inner geek. Rekindle that old hobby. Find a new hobby. And it'll do yourself some good. Just reconnect with yourself. Don't be afraid to connect with yourself. You take care of yourself, you'll be that much better for others, or for your family, for your friends. So that's all I'm saying. Don't be afraid to check in with yourself and take care of yourself. Until Friday for the next podcast, or Saturday for the broadcast, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and I'll see you then.